Shalom, shalom, and welcome to the nature preserve and the archaeological site of Dan. According to Judges chapter 18, the Danites relocated here to this area. Conquering the city of Laish, they relocated their tribe from the Tel Aviv area along the Mediterranean coastline to this northern border. In fact, the Bible oftentimes uses the term from Dan to Beersheba to describe the northern and southern borders of the country. Because of the abundance of water, we can certainly speculate that the Danites relocated here because of this unbelievable water source in comparison to other regions of the land. It must have surely been a blessing to live here at Dan. Dan represents one of the three tributaries of the Jordan River. This is the largest of the three, and it flows with water all year around. This nature preserve provides us a wonderful opportunity to see the beauty of God's creation here, but also the abundance of water at this. We're reminded of what the psalmist says in Psalm 42. As the deer pants for water, so my soul thirsts for you, O God. As we thirst for God and long after His direction, that's when God provides us His perfect pathway for our lives. The archaeological part of the city of Dan is quite impressive. It contains a high place that's mentioned in 1 Kings chapter 12. As a result of a pattern of disobedience that began in the book of Judges when the Danites relocated here from the Tel Aviv area, we read in 1 Kings 12 about Jeroboam, the king of the northern kingdom of Israel, and how he built a high place here. He set one up in Bethel and one here in Dan. The foundations of an altar was found here. As well as steps that would have led to the high place of Dan. Jeroboam instituted false worship here, and he most likely set up a golden calf here on the high place of Dan. God would ultimately judge the northern kingdom without any righteous kings, this pattern of disobedience would continue until their destruction by the Assyrians in 722. This pattern of false worship led to the destruction of the northern kingdom. Here on the border with Lebanon, we consider this life lesson of carefully considering the patterns of disobedience that sometimes we practice in our lives. God invites us to truly strive to be a holy sacrifice to God. That requires carefully considering the patterns of disobedience that arise in our lives. Just like what happened here at Dan, when the high place was established by Jeroboam. May we be a holy and living sacrifice to God. The famous Dan inscription that mentions the house of David was found right here in secondary use, here at the Iron Age part of the city of Dan. This was a double gate complex, very formidable city. You would have entered the city through this gate and then would have been met by another interior gate. This interior gate was a 6-chambered gate, as they typically were in the days of the Iron Age or Old Testament. This one at Dan is quite impressive. During the days of the Old Testament, gates were used as a place of decision-making, commerce, and gathering. We read in the book of Ruth, for instance, Boaz went up to the gate and he took 10 men of the elders of the city and said, "Sit down here." And they sat down. This is where either the judge or the king would have sat, the outside of the gate, as he would have been greeted by people. This is where he would have made important decisions on behalf of the community.